Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. In today's video, I'll be using some papers from Your Paper Insider's Box 14. This is currently the box you'll receive if you sign up and subscribe to their quarterly subscription box. And every single box I've ever received is always filled with gorgeous and unique paper and cardstock. The papers arrive in a cardboard box, and those are perfect for storing. I moved all my papers into this plastic box that I found on Amazon. I like that it's clear so I can see the gorgeous colors inside. And if you're interested in subscribing or checking out Your Paper Insider, I do have links in the description box below. Other products I'll be using for my card are Scrapbook.com's Cottage Die Set, specifically the sunflower and leaves. For a sentiment, I pulled out Scrapbook.com's Hello Bloom die set, and I'll be using this cursive hello along with the shadow for the word. For the background of my card, I'm using the white hemp flower tissue paper that's included in box 14, and I'll be layering it on the dark blue Curious Skin paper. It's a super dark blue paper, almost looks black. This floral piece I cut to 5 1/4 of an inch by 4 inches, and the dark blue paper is A2 size, 5.5 inches by 4 1/4 inches. I'll put adhesive on the back of the floral paper and adhere it on the dark blue background, and I wasn't sure if the adhesive would show through since the floral paper is a bit see-through. You can see my fingers on the back of the paper when I'm holding it. But once I adhered it down, I couldn't see any of the adhesive, so I was happy with that. Now, I haven't tried it yet, but I think if you use a liquid adhesive, you may be able to see it from the front of the floral paper. Now, I'll put more ATG tape on the back, add my card front onto a card base, and this is an American Standard A2 size card. Right here, I was checking again if any of the adhesive was visible, since I did add a little bit in the center on the left side, and that's where I'll put one of the images, but I couldn't see any of the adhesive. I am following a card sketch for inspiration. This is from Freshly Made Sketches. It's number 718. For that diagonal strip at the very bottom, I'm using the same dark blue paper and also some of this gorgeous gold cardstock. It's the bright gold brushed metal double-sided cardstock, and it's so pretty. Instead of a straight cut on the top of that piece, I thought it would be fun to have a Deckle cut, and I'm using Tim Holtz Deckle trimmer for that fun edge. I'll layer the blue piece on the gold, since you'll only see a tiny bit of that gold above the dark blue. Then I'll line it up in the trimmer and very carefully cut the gold paper. And I'm cutting the gold piece so you'll see about 1/8 of an inch of it. And I will save this cutoff piece, since sometimes all you need is a little bit of specialty cardstock. It would be perfect to cut out some small circles or stars for embellishments. I'll set aside the trimmer, grab my card, put adhesive on the back of this piece, and adhere it at the very bottom of the floral paper. So there's the background of my card. Overall, it's a very simple card sketch design, but it's perfect for adding an image and sentiment. I'll set aside the card for now. And before I start working on the image, I wanted to show my new magnetic glass mat from GLASSBOARD Studio. I fell in love with this design and couldn't resist buying it. This is the Mountain Majesties design in the 13.5 by 18 inch size, which is their second smallest size. If you haven't tried a magnetic glass mat yet, I highly recommend them from GLASSBOARD Studio. And if you are shopping at GLASSBOARD Studio, make sure to use my code Kristie to save 20%. But the 20% only lasts through March of 2026. I know it's only February, but I couldn't resist making a sunflower. There's a beautiful yellow cardstock in box 14. It's the Beeswax Color Wheel Spellbinders. I cut out 3 layers of petals, and I'm adding just a little extra ink to the tips of all the petals. The ink color is Catherine Pooler's Sauna, and I have the ink pad in one of GLASSBOARD Studio's MagInk Trays. It has a magnet on the bottom, so it securely holds your ink pad in place while you're ink blending. When ink blending, I always wipe off a little bit of ink on the mat. That way, if my ink pad is super juicy, I don't ruin the cardstock. And then I do try to pull from that ink while I'm ink blending. To clean up the mat, I'll simply spray it with water and then wipe it clean and dry using a Crafty cleanup cloth from scrapbook.com. I'll be adding a brown center for the sunflower, but there's not any brown cardstock in box 14. So instead, I'm using some of their cold press watercolor paper. I cut just a small piece big enough for the center of the sunflower, and I'll ink the cardstock piece using Distress Oxide Walnut Stain. Then I'll grab the die, cut it out with my die cut machine. I have one other piece of cardstock to ink, so I need to clean my mat. I'll be adding green leaves for the sunflower, but there isn't a green cardstock in box 14. So again, I'll use more of the cold press watercolor paper. And the ink color I'm using is Distress Oxide Rustic Wilderness. The square ink pads don't really fit on the MagInk Tray, but I do have a workaround. I place one of their MiniPawn magnets at the top of the tray, and then the Distress Oxide will sit on that top groove. This trick works pretty well, but I am hoping that GLASSBOARD Studio will come out with a MagInk Tray that perfectly holds the Distress Oxide inks. So there's my piece of cardstock all inked up in green. I'll quickly clean my craft mat. I'll be cutting out 4 leaves, 2 large and 2 small, although I'm only adding 3 of them to the sunflower. At this point, I wasn't sure if I wanted 2 large and 1 small or 2 small and 1 large. Another option, you could first cut out the leaves and the center of the sunflower from white cardstock and then ink those pieces. So now it's time to assemble the sunflower. Using that same size center die, I cut out 2 more pieces from some scrap white cardstock, and I'm adding it between the petal layers for a little extra dimension. If you want even more dimension, you could put some foam pieces between the petal layers. So I'll add that first scrap piece on the very back petal layer, then I'll add the middle petal piece down. And I'm offsetting them slightly, so you'll still see a little gap between most of the petals. Now I'll put that scrap piece behind the top petal layer. I'm also using my fingers to curl up the ends of the petals. Now I'll add that final petal layer on top, and now you can see I've filled in any of those gap areas. So now my sunflower is nice and full with tons of pretty petals. For the center of the flower, I'll first add this larger piece, and I cut this out from the Touche saffron paper that's included in box 14. Next, I'll add the inked brown piece in the center. So there's the sunflower all assembled. I'll grab my card, and I'm adding the sunflower on the left side. For a sentiment, I'm adding the word hello. For the word, I used the same Touche saffron paper. And for the shadow piece, this is the Opal Oyster Pearl Gloss Shimmer cardstock that's included in box 14. It has a beautiful pearlescent finish. I'll hold the die cut word using my reverse tweezers, and very carefully I'll add Barely Art glue on the back, then adhere it on that shadow piece. And since I am adhering 2 specialty cardstocks together, sometimes it takes a little bit longer for the glue to fully adhere. So I'll place an acrylic block on top, and I did let that sit for a few minutes. I'll add the sentiment in the lower right-hand corner, and I decided I would pop it up using some foam. I did start putting glue on the back, but then I changed my mind and decided it needed some dimension, so I'll wipe away that glue with my finger. The foam I'm using is from scrapbook.com. It's their small foam squares in the 1mm thickness. So it'll add just that little bit of dimension. I did cut some of the squares in half to fit behind the narrow areas of the sentiment. I'll remove the release paper, and before adhering it down, I decided to add one more small piece of foam. I want to make sure to have good coverage so one area doesn't sag. I'll remove the final piece of release paper and add the sentiment in the lower right-hand corner. I'll also be popping up the sunflower, but just behind the very center. I'm using a large foam squares and 3 small foam squares. These are also the 1mm thickness. I'll remove the release paper, add the sunflower in the upper left-hand corner, making sure there's still plenty of room to add the leaves. Before adhering the leaves down, I am tearing off the stem, and I'm also curling up the ends of the leaves with my finger. I played around with the leaves for a moment, decided to go with 1 large and 2 small, and also decided to put a little bit of foam behind the ends of the 3 leaves. I'll grab the small foam squares in the 1mm thickness. After removing the release paper, I'll put glue behind the rest of the large leaf and adhere it behind the sunflower in the upper left-hand corner. Now I'll add half a foam square behind this small leaf, put glue behind the rest, adhere that one underneath the larger leaf. Then I have one final leaf, the small leaf, put foam dimension behind the very end of the leaf and glue behind the rest. And I'll tuck it in on the right side of the sunflower above the sentiment. I'm using my fingers and curling up some of those top petals again, adding a little more dimension. For a final finishing touch, I'm using some teeny tiny gold stickers. These were included in a Love from Lizzie kit. I think it was from last year. It's not available any longer, but I'm trying to use up some items in my stash. I thought the small gold circles would be perfect inside the sunflower, adding some lovely gold shine. I'm using the medium-sized circle from this set, and I'll just fill that center with lots of little circles. I'll add just a couple more of the small circles, and I did end up repositioning one of the circles in the very center. I'll also add 3 of the circles in the lower right-hand corner underneath the sentiment. This time I'm using 1 large circle and 2 of the medium size. And then finally 2 circles on the left side of the sentiment using a large and the final medium size circle. So there is my finished card, and I love this pretty sunflower. I know it's only February, but you can use sunflowers year-round. If you are interested in any of the products I used in this video, I do have links in the description box below. It's always exciting to see what paper and cardstocks included in your Paper Insider's quarterly subscription box. If you prepay for an annual subscription, you'll save even more. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.